let's get into Killers of the Flower Moon now. So it's gonna be.
I'm gonna mute and just text me or.
Sounds good. Well, Seth just dropped away, but
I'll literally be like 1 minute. I'm just putting my
sounds good. So Killers of the Flower Moon, obviously we're a week late, so we won't go over it like too crazy in depth. We obviously will have a lot to say, but George said he wouldn't have a ton to say for this. Cam hasn't seen it yet, and we are a week late at this point, which kind of like I tweeted the other day about like film Twitter, like how you just always feel behind on everything. Like I feel the same about like just like content in general, like the fact that we're like a week late. I'm like, I feel like it's already been like 10 lifetimes since Killers of the Flower Moon has come out. So, but yeah, for those of you who've been waiting to hear our thoughts, because I know a lot of people have. Killers of the Flower Moon, the latest from Martin Scorsese, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, Jesse Plemons, Lily Gladstone, Brendan Fraser. When oil is discovered in 1920s Oklahoma under Osage Nation land, the Osage people are murdered one by one until the FBI steps in to unravel the mystery. So 3 of us have seen it at this point. Reviews right now. So Seth has it at a 5-star. George and I have it at a 4-star. And Cam hasn't seen it yet. I actually don't know, like, when does it come out on Apple TV Plus? Probably like in like a week or so, but so it came out in theaters, but they're not like Peacock where they're just doing the same exact date where it's dropping. But Apple TV Plus is probably coming out, I would guess, in sometime in November. Big controversy this week with the whole intermission stuff where like some theaters have just like randomly added in an intermission, which is just like so wild. Like, to just,
how do you randomly do that? Like, I feel like that's just like, if it's not in the movie already, don't just add it in.
Right. Like who has the balls, or like who has the power of the theater to be like, this is exactly what the animation should be. Like who chooses like when like the cut's gonna be. Like that's just so wild that like they're just doing that. And it's just like so weird that the discourse of runtimes popped up for this one. Like it's like 10 minutes longer than like so many movies we've seen recently, like Avatar and
I'm sure many people watched
Avengers.
Endgame in theaters like 4 or 5 times. Like you could sit through one 3.5-hour movie and not need an intermission.
Yeah, so it's really weird to me that like the discourse got so crazy for this one. But anyways, let's get into our review of it. So, George, I don't know if you want to just give your kind of quick high level thoughts.
Yeah, I also want to like explain just why I'm gonna take a backseat. I had like just a shit week last week. I was just like in agony, just going through some shit, and I was like really, I hate to admit this, but I am going to rewatch the movie, but I was just like very in and out of like paying attention to Killers of the Flower Moon. I was just not in the right headspace mentally and physically. And it was just like it was very agonizing just sitting there for 3.5 hours. I just felt very uncomfortable. So it was just really like, for me personally, the theater experience was not bad. It was just me personally. I was just in a really just bad place, and just watching that movie was just not what I needed in that moment. So I'm going to rewatch it this week, hopefully Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And I'll probably post like a full TikTok video, or even next week, I'll just give my opinions quickly. But it's a Scorsese flick. It truly is a behemoth. It is a really powerful educational movie. That's just about what I'm going to say on it, because I really don't think my review would do this film justice until I've rewatched it. So I'm going to let you and Seth just take the reins on this one.
Yeah, that's fair. One thing I just do want to mention. So I Googled it, so I guess I was wrong. So Apple TV said that it'll be at least 45 days before it's going to be on streaming services, which means it'll be December. But there's also apparently rumors that they're not even going to put it on Apple TV Plus until 2024. So going to get a full extended theatrical run. And if you're like been holding out for seeing it on streaming services, it's not going to be for a while. So Apple TV very committed to the theatrical run, unlike some other streaming services. So nice to see. So Seth, you're the highest on it. So a rare first watch 5-star review from Seth. So yeah, give your overall thoughts on Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, so obviously I watched it. On the 11th, so quite a while ago now, actually. I obviously Scorsese is one of my favorite filmmakers ever, as I've said many times. And I think we're in the period right now for me of Scorsese's best ever work as a filmmaker, or most ambitious, most daring works. And I think that Killers of the Flower Moon definitely fits within that. I think it's a monumental achievement in not only American cinema, but in cinema in general, that is as sprawling and epic as a piece of American history, but also an essential film and really one of his most important films, along with Silence, which obviously I speak very, very highly about, and along with a few of his previous other works as well. And I think it's important to emphasize with a film like this that I'm not Osage. I'm not a person who can look at this and judge it by its values, because I hear a lot of criticisms about how it should have been from different perspectives in terms of the protagonist. Completely fair. I think that this film is one of those where I can't offer a full opinion, or I can offer my own, but I can't offer full value from the mindset of someone whose family's been through that. But I do think what Martin Scorsese actually accomplished is a really sincere, a really delicate, and a really passionate project that shone a light onto a darker portion of American history that definitely, for me, I'm not sure how spoken about it is in America, but for me, I wasn't that familiar with, only kind of the basics. And I think it's important to note I haven't read the book either. I recently went on 24 Minutes of A24 with Ethan and Ben, which obviously Tyler went on as well. I gave him a brief discussion on there, and I think it was Ben mentioned he'd read the book and his experience was a little bit different. And I've spoken to a lot of people about that. The books was very different in terms of the path it took. So yeah, completely makes sense in that regard. And I haven't read it, so I could be way off. But I just found it to be such a phenomenal experience, a phenomenal piece of storytelling, emotional, devastating, and really, really important as a piece of history. I also think, I heard you guys speaking about the runtime discourse as well. Like, I think Tyler said this, but it's weird because, yeah, it's a long film, but there's been so many 3+ hour films and no one's complained. Like, John Wick was nearly 3 hours. Oppenheimer, Babylon was almost the same time, I think, or like a bit less, obviously. But like,
yeah,
the discourse on it is very unusual. I do think that comes from a place of the subject matter of the film, tonally. So me personally, I didn't feel any of the runtime, which is rare because I do speak about runtimes a lot, and I do think if a film is too long for me, I'll always say it. But I went with Josiah Coops, and we were both kind of in awe the whole time. And I remember just thinking, like, when it ended, it felt like about 2 hours. I had a blast. Sounds bad because I didn't have fun with this. It's not a film that's meant for that. But it was an educating experience, and it was something I couldn't take my eyes off. And it was something I loved. It's currently my number one of the year so far. My only 5-star this year, and it actually sits at 5th place in my Scorsese filmography. And fun fact as well, Scorsese, I now have 4th place, because I have 5 out of 5 from Scorsese. So he's now joint with Kubrick and Bergman, which is interesting. So yeah, I loved it. Number one of the year so far. And I think he achieved exactly what he set out to do.
Yeah, kind of going off what you were saying about like the Osage, like a lot of interesting discourse from that aspect as well, in terms of like we've seen, Native Americans and Osage come out and like give their opinions on the movie.
Did you see the video of the guy who was like
who worked on the movie?
What's the word for it? Like he was the Osage, like
not translator, but he kind of like, I think he was like kind of helping with like the language and stuff.
He also did something else, like in terms of the story. Yeah, he was like the guy on the side who was helping out with the culture and the language, stuff like that, which I actually found really refreshing that he offered. I think his perspective was really, really interesting. Coming from an Osage person, was really interesting to listen to. And I like how Scorsese got people involved like that, because a lot of other filmmakers wouldn't, and we know that. So I really appreciated different perspectives. But yeah, sorry,
right. Yeah, and then like there's that one Twitter thread from that actress from Reservation Dogs, and like a lot of, like, she was obviously very negative on the movie, and a lot of people kind of like jumped at her for that. And like I see it from both sides. For me personally, like I removed like a line from a letterbox review saying like Martin Scorsese handled the subject matter with a lot of care, because yeah, sure, he might have not. Like I don't know. Like I just feel like I don't really have the voice to say if he did or not.
That makes sense.
But I've seen a lot of people jump on her for being so negative. But it's like, I don't know. Like I guess you can like disagree with someone's opinion, but I feel like when like they've like they from that cultural background, I feel like it's kind of like weird to like attack someone for like being strongly negative about something when like they have like a more of a like connection to it. But I don't know. I did see like the video of the guy on the red carpet, and that was really refreshing review too, especially from somebody who like worked on the movie, like to be able like to come out and like, because obviously like, I mean, that's just kind of a film industry thing that I feel like a lot of people might not like realize firsthand, is like, just because you're like in a movie or worked on it, like you're part of like a sliver of the process. So you have like no idea what the final thing's going to be until you see it. I mean, even a lot of actors in this movie probably had no clue what any movie's going to look like until they actually see it.
Absolutely. I also think that kind of is a credit to Scorsese as well, for getting people to work on the film like that, and actually having people deliver, on the red carpet, deliver, from the background, deliver a nuanced review of the film and a really honest look at it, because he wasn't wholly negative on the film like the review you just spoken about, but he had issues with it. He had issues with the path they took in terms of, choosing to go with, what's his name?
Ernest Burkhart.
Ernest Burkhart, yeah. with his sort of story with the love and stuff, instead of actually showing the compassionate way and going from kind of Molly's perspective, which I definitely understand. So I think it was nice to hear perspectives from different cultures. But yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. I think it's very weird attacking someone for their review who literally comes from that background is a bit odd. And also like just attacking some review in general. Do you know what I mean? Like just it's a film that's going to have, I think I said this in my review initially when I watched Killers of the Flower Moon. It's not a Scorsese for everyone. It's not a sprawling Goodfellas. It's not a gangster flick. You know, it's going to be similar reaction to Silence.
There's splashes of Goodfellas in there, though.
There is. No, absolutely. Yeah. I just mean like subject matter wise, it's not something you can go overboard. It's something you have to be care and delicate with, which is why I compare it to like a Silence, because you're not, you know, people are going to be upset at the film, how you display certain things, but it's a sincerity that comes from Scorsese that I value completely, because I really do think he took the care when going into it, like Silence and like The Last Temptation of Christ. But they're always going to be controversial films because of the subject matter, and you have to be honest and open with other people's opinions on them. That's kind of, you know, my take on it anyway.
Agreed. And we'll talk when we kind of like briefly go into spoilers. We'll talk about like kind of the ending and how like he might have like touched on something for like the criticism for this part, but I do think I wish Lily Gladstone did get a little more focus in this movie. Like a lot of people say she's like the front runner for lead actress. I thought she was really, really good in this, but like, I don't know. I just feel like she didn't get like, I was expecting a lot. Like when I saw it, because before the movie came out, like we'd already, because it premiered, what was it, Cannes Film Festival where it came out?
Yeah.
Pretty much the overwhelming reaction was like Lily Gladstone just won her Oscar. And if she wins, I would like totally be happy about it. But like, I don't know. I was just like kind of surprised. Like it was almost like not to compare the movies, but it was almost like Margot Robbie and Barbie, where like I went in expecting this to be a full movie about her, and then I was like, oh, like kind of took a back seat more than I was expecting to. So I guess in terms of that aspect is like a fine comparison. But yeah, for me, one more thing to touch on. So you said, you know, as someone from like the UK like might not know too much about the Osage history. Same thing in America. This is something I'd never learned in history class or was taught about, but that's not just an Osage thing. I think in general, just America doesn't want to teach about Native Americans. Like, I mean, obviously, like what they've done throughout history has been atrocious to them. So it's just kind of classic, you know,
ignore it, sweep under the rug.
Yeah, sweep it under the rug. It's like any war that the U.S. has ever lost is like, oh, we just won't really touch on that one. And like, history classes, like it's not just Osage, even though I had never heard of any of this, but because that was my immediate reaction coming out of the movie. I was like, wow, there's like such a like deeply emotional, moving, impactful story. How had I never heard anything about the Osage Nation? Then I was like, I haven't heard shit about like Choctaw, Chippewa, like any Native American.
Yeah.
I was like, I guess it's not just an Osage thing, just any Native American, which, I definitely want to start diving into more. But like we just kind of mentioned about Goodfellas, it's kind of like there's definitely a Goodfellas moments in this where it's like it has that gritty gangster crime thriller vibe, but also like a lot of like meditative emotion of something like Silence. So I feel like it was a kind of a blend of, you know, Scorsese's old career with his new career in terms of like the gangster epic versus kind of more deeply meditative movie. I think DiCaprio, like I think is his best performance of his career.
Really? Interesting.
I do think so. I mean, it's close to me, which I know you're not high in the movie, but I think his performance in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is up there for me. Maybe
that's my number one.
Oh, really? I
did it literally like. I did a video on it like last week. I did like a ranking. My number one is his performance in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, and like they're like
it was 5 for me.
I think it might be a little Killers of the Flower Moon, might be like just recency bias maybe for his performance, but I think clearly, and like obviously a lot of people would say Wolf of Wall Street's a common pick, but I think for me it's between Killers of the Flower Moon and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
For me, it's Once Eaten Gilbert Grape is my number 2. Catch Me If You Can, and then probably Kills the Full Moon. So
for me, with What's Eating Gilbert Grape, which I love, that's up there as well. It's just like kind of, it's almost like hard to compare that because it's like been so long ago, and like it's almost like a different person at this point. Like, but not enough people, in my opinion, are talking about Robert De Niro. To me, like he was the best performance personally of the movie. To me, like he was just so menacing without trying to be menacing. Like he was just like sitting there, just being normal. But like I was terrified of him the whole movie. I thought he really gave a phenomenal performance because, as we know, Robert De Niro late career, he's been kind of all over the place with like the movies he's been in. Like he's been in a lot of unserious projects, but like the fact he can still, put on the acting chops and deliver just such a phenomenal performance like this is crazy. And then the last performance I'll touch on is Brendan Fraser. So like a lot of people are like saying like it's a very divisive performance.
Very.
And like the weird thing is people defending him are like saying like pointing out like I saw Apple TV tweeted saying like, look, in the book, like it was an exclamation point, like he was supposed to yell in the courtroom. But like everyone's like acting like, since I didn't like the performance, like that the courtroom, like him yelling is the only thing I didn't like. Like I didn't like a single second he was on the screen. It wasn't just like the initial outburst that I feel like most people were taking a jar by, but like when they went in that bottom basement room and like talked to Ernest Burkhardt about like what he should do and like not testify, like that whole sequence with his dialogue, like when he's not being an outburst, like I still was just like, I just am not digging this performance. It wasn't just like his one like outburst court scene. Just like, and every second he was on the screen, I just didn't like Brendan Fraser in this movie at all.
Yeah, I also didn't really love it, to be honest. Like, I'm not going to say I hated it. It didn't bother me to the point where it took me out of the film, but I don't know. I guess I'm just not, honestly, I'm just not like huge on Brendan Fraser. I didn't love his performance in The Whale either. I don't know. It just didn't really fit for me. Like, I didn't hate it. It didn't take me out, but it's not something I love. But it's crazy. Like on Twitter, it's like no one's in the middle. It's I'm seeing so many people love it. And then, I've seen so many people hate it as well. I've seen like a lot of tweets about people not liking it. So it's very divisive. I think he has his kind of caricature, his the way he displays himself was deliberate in the film, obviously.
Right.
But I think it's whether his voice and his mannerisms work for you in that atmosphere, you know. And for me, mostly didn't. You know, some parts I was fine with, but I didn't love it. But I get both sides, you know what I mean? It's just about if you like his persona. So I get if you loved it, but I also get like you if you didn't particularly like it, because it's a tough one. You know what I mean? It's not like how do I explain it? It's not going to work for everyone. Do you know what I mean? It's not an actor who's always going to work. Same with The Whale. Same with the reaction to that. Same thing.
Yep, exactly. But because of that, the courtroom sequences kind of at the end just didn't really like hit as hard for me as I wanted them to, just because I don't think I could really take them seriously. That's why, like mentioned earlier, The Burial is probably the best courtroom scene I've seen of the year. And again, like I said, I haven't seen Anatomy of a Fall, and I don't know. Like, I'm pretty sure from what I've heard, that's like basically just purely like a courtroom drama. So I haven't seen that yet. But for me, I don't know. Like personally, I felt every minute of the 3.5 hour runtime, and not like in a bad way. It's just I didn't really think it flew by for me. But I mean, it didn't feel longer than 3.5 hours. You know, it was like just like I felt the runtime. So I went to like a early screening or whatever, and they like had like a dress code where it said like cocktail.
Yeah, that's
attire,
crazy. I wore like tracksuit bottoms, and like I had a bag with me and shit. Like I was just like.
But like the worst thing was they said that the dress code wasn't strictly enforced, which I think is the worst thing ever, because it's like, then do you show up fully dressed up and then you stick out like a sore thumb, or do you say, oh, it's not strictly enforced, I'll go casually, and then everyone is following it and you're
everyone's
like,
there.
It's like if you're gonna have a dress code strictly enforced. So we kind of just did the middle. Like Riley just wore like a
how did you watch
dress.
it? Was it like what kind of was it like IMAX or?
It was a Dolby screening, so it wasn't
same as ours. Yeah, we had Dolby.
But yeah, like I just wore like a nice shirt and pants, so I was like, I'm just gonna shoot for the middle. Like I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I do.
But yeah, like the concession line was super long. Like Riley, because it was like around dinner time. It's obviously like a long movie, so Riley got like chicken tenders, and they were taking forever. So like the movie was about to start, and I was like, sorry, I can't wait with you any longer. Like I have to go in there. She didn't end up missing any of the movie, but I walked in with popcorn, tripped up the stairs, going up the stairs. All time humiliating move.
Do you know how many times it's happened to me? It's crazy.
And obviously it's like a fully sold out massive theater showing, and I'm just like, and my seat was like a reserved seat, so it was like the front row of like the not like the front section, but like the main section. So like everyone, all the rows behind me, just like saw me just eat shit, and I was like, this is great. This is exactly how it started. But yeah, so I feel like that a lot of this movie was just absolutely brilliant. Like I said, I just think he's just operating at such a high level that the end of this movie is just so crazy. And we'll kind of transition at this point into some spoilers in general. There's not honestly like a ton of spoilers I want to go into, but obviously I want to talk about the ending of the movie, so I'll throw on the spoilers sign. But I guess let's start there. So the big end reveal is they kind of just show that kind of the retelling of this movie is through kind of like a old school kind of radio show, talk show broadcast with the performative, you know, kind of live instruments and live studio audience. And then the big kind of rug pull at the end is that Scorsese is the last guy who comes out and kind of reads the final passage of the film. And I don't know, I just don't really think there was any possible way he could have done it better than that, to kind of just cement the fact that like he's telling a movie about people that he has because I was confused when he said like, this is a deeply personal movie to me. I was like, and I tried to look it up and I couldn't find anything. So I don't know if you have anything, but he kept saying like, there's a deeply personal story to him. And I was like, what is his connection here? Like, I don't get like his connection to these people.
I don't know. I was kind of thinking the same. I don't know if he
said it so many times too, like how like personal and it was to him. And I'm like, where? Like, and I couldn't find anything online, like how the connection is.
I think so when he did the talk that I went to see at the London Film Festival, he kind of mentioned the material a lot. He didn't say like any background, but he did say this is a film he's been wanting to do for a while. Like he initially started reading this book and was trying to write a script for it originally, I believe, in like mid 2000s, kind of late 2000s. So I think it's a film he's been wanting to produce to make for a long time. I don't know if he goes further back than that, but I think it was just a project he's really passionate about and he's been kind of waiting to do. I would assume that's it anyway. It might be more. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't know if he has a connection to the author either, because The Wager, his next movie, is by the same exact author, Killers of the Flower Moon. So
yeah.
he just clearly took like a good, strong connection to that. But like I was saying, like I don't think there's really any better way to show that the fact that like he's telling such an important story, but at the end of the day, he's just telling someone else's story. And once again, it's white people telling a story about other he's just kind of like, he doesn't want to be the person to tell the story, but he kind of feels like a duty and obligation to, because it is such an emotional, impactful story that needs to be told, but he doesn't feel like he's the right person to be telling it, but he still is telling it. And obviously like a massive like kind of shot-ish at like true crime podcasts and shows, which are like the massive rage that are just like commodifying and profiting off of like horrible things. And which like kind of is what they're doing here too. Like, cause like he's going to be making a lot of money from this too, but he's kind of self-aware of that. So I don't know, the self-awareness I really enjoyed about the final reveal. And obviously it was just like a crazy thing to see. Like I was like, holy shit, what the hell?
It almost, excuse me, it almost takes you out. You know, the goal might be, it kind of takes you out of a movie environment, you know, of the fact that what you've just watched isn't a film, it's not a story, it's kind of real life. And it kind of, Scorsese manages to put you in perspective of that and understand by putting you in an environment like the true crime sphere and stuff like that, that this is something that actually happened. These are events that actually took place. And more importantly, this is how people were treated. And he's the one to kind of tell this story. And I really liked that because it kind of takes you out of the film environment and makes you think. A very thought-provoking approach. Not something I've ever seen before. It really surprised me. Like, I don't know about you, but I was really shocked at the end of it. I was like, what the fuck? This is out of nowhere. But I really like that. Again, it comes back to kind of the self-awareness as well of Scorsese as a filmmaker and how sincere he is as a filmmaker that I really appreciated. So I really like the ending. I know it's like quite a controversial one. I can't remember who I spoke to now, and they weren't a big fan of it. Interestingly, for that reason that it took them out of the film, but I think that's the approach. That's the goal. You know, you want to see this as something that actually happened and not just a story for entertainment. Does that make sense? That's kind of how I see it. Anyway.
No, totally agree. And then just, yeah, so I don't know. I don't really have anything to touch on the ending. I thought I've loved the ending. It really elevated the film for me. I think there's so many minor supporting roles in this movie that were like so well done. Like some people, like who's that one guy who's like that actor who got 0 lines? Who I can't remember what thing he's. What's that dude? He has a very distinct looking face, but what's he like? God, what's his name?
Oh man, I know exactly who you mean.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
So on Twitter,
I'm looking at the cast, but he's probably gonna be pretty far down.
He will be, yeah.
He has such a distinct face.
Oh, by the way, Jesse Plemons is so good.
Eldon Henson. What is he? What is he in? What's he like known from? He's in like the Mighty Ducks, but I thought it was something more iconic than that.
No, there was something I saw on Twitter. I'll check when you talk. But yeah, Jesse Plemons as well. I think he'll like honestly become like a regular now, you know, because obviously since The Irishman and stuff, I think Jesse Plemons is such a good actor.
He's so good. And like it kind of sucked that like it was probably like 45 minutes left when we first saw him. Like it was like way later than I thought.
Yeah, it was. He's pretty young too, you know. He's like mid-30s. He's not like middle-aged. He's still in his 30s, I think. So he's like,
yeah, his film, like I saw someone like half jokingly tweet it, but like someone like half jokingly tweeted like Jesse Plemons might have the greatest filmography of all time, and he's like definitely like. He
give it like 15 years, it's gonna be fucking crazy. Like some of the films, he's such a good actor.
All the films he's been in, plus like throw Breaking Bad into the mix too. Like it's just crazy.
Yeah, literally, he's like one of the main villains in Breaking Bad. It's crazy.
But he's so good in this. I love like a meme I saw from like it was like Apple TV Plus. It's like we're here to see about the intermissions. Like what about the intermissions? See who's been doing them.
I kept seeing so many like Frito-Lay memes after he came on. It's crazy. No one's ever gonna let him live that role down. Yeah, that's like always the role people.
But I mean, it's not like in a negative way. It's like that he genuinely had one of the funniest things ever.
No, it was great. Yeah, exactly. I just think he's like one of the most exciting. I guess he is kind of up and coming. Not because he's not old. You know, he's like 20. Like, I think he's like 34.
He's pretty young in Breaking Bad. Like, I mean, he looked like he's supposed to be like an 18, 20-year-old, but he probably was like 25, 26.
I think he was like mid-20s. Yeah, mid-20s. But like, he's really one of the most exciting actors in Hollywood right now, and his filmography is just building. And I think more importantly as well, they're not just like good films; they're interesting films. He's picking really interesting projects.
Like I'm thinking of ending things. Like he's picking. He was stuff.
In Judas and Black Messiah with Daniel Kaluuya and Keith Stanfield is in. I'm thinking of ending things like you said. The Irishman obviously kills the family. The Master, PTA's The Master, he was in that. He was in El Camino, obviously the Breaking Bad universe. And he's been in like so many other good stuff. And such an interesting career. And I think he's going to be like really excited to kind of follow. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, really, really liked him. I think he's such a great
It's crazy because he went from like, because after El Camino, he was like Fat Damon and that was like his thing. But he's like almost outlived that. Like, because he's been in so many good movies that he was like able to kind of like almost erase that meme. Like,
oh, absolutely. He's
no
like
one really calls him
higher
anymore.
than that. He's so much higher than that now. Like,
Right.
he's just a really fucking great actor. That's the thing.
But yeah, there's so many great supporting roles in this movie. Kind of talking about Osage representation. I love that they used actual like, you know, Native American people, like not just like straight up actors, but I will say like there was some scenes where like I could kind of tell they're not like very experienced. Like, I don't know, like in the huts when they're doing like the overall speech with like the town saying like, we got to go to like all these people are coming in ruining our town. Like I feel like it was supposed to be a super powerful, like emotional speech, but I kind of was just like I was like, this isn't really like, I'm not really being like sold or moved by this.
Yeah, it's going to be tough when, you know, it's kind of the awkward line of using authentic people, but then also
which I'd rather have him do. Like, I'm happy.
Yeah, obviously you'd rather use authentic people, especially in an instance like this. If he didn't, he would definitely get some flack, and deservedly so.
Right.
But it's going to be hard for them to be as, especially when you've got such good actors.
Right. Yeah.
You got your Jess Plemons, you got Leo, you got Lily Gladstone, you've got Robert De Niro. It's going to be hard to contrast them with each other. Do you know what I mean? But I think they did a good job. You know,
Right.
Yeah. I also think she was really great as well. I'm not going to remember her name, but it was like her first acting role in a film. It was Lily Gladstone's sister who gets killed earlier on in the film. We got spoilers, but the one who drinks quite a lot. She was great. I really, really liked her. I think that was like one of her first roles, I'm pretty sure. But there was a few. Yeah, I know what you mean, but it is going to be hard because it also makes them look worse when they're having conversations with these actors. Right. Do you know what I mean?
One thing I kind of want to like talk to you about, just to kind of get your thoughts on it. So when her sister or her second sister to die at this point gets blown up in the house with that other guy who was like hopping around the family, going sister to sister, getting in relationships with them, just trying to take their, I can't remember what the term is for it. Not like penance, but like whatever it means to have like the rights to the real estate and like whatever. When their house gets blown up and they go and find like them dead. Well, he's not dead at the moment. He's like, kill me. Very like gruesome graphic scene. But then you see her and her like the back of her head's like blown up, but she like the way she was laying looked like she was like been dead for a while. Like she was like laying there peacefully. So like my kind of interpretation from that was either like, it was just maybe like weird because like I don't know, like she looked like too pristine sitting there, and like she had her skin already looked kind of like gray, so it was like maybe she's been dead for a while. So like my interpretation was maybe like he already killed her and like completed his next like killed the family or like somehow like staged her death, and then like the house blew up like later that night or something. I don't know. Like I just thought it was weird when they went to the house, like it just blew up, but she was just kind of like laying there like cross-armed, like kind of just like looked.
It was pristine. It did look like she was there. Yeah, it was kind of weird. I don't know. Because you could be right. I think it's also logical to think he killed her, and then kind of that was set
like
up later
down the
line.
Quote unquote suicide.
Yeah, and that was kind of set up later down the line. I think that's probably what I'd go with, to be honest, and that makes the most sense. But it also could have just been that.
And it was like her back of her head was blown out too, which like being blown up, like I feel like it was just like a little too coincidental. But
you'd probably assume it was like a murder suicide kind of thing. I would assume so anyway, but who knows? I'd probably go with the same as you, definitely.
Dude, and then one thing in the courtroom scene that like totally I thought was going to go a different way. So I can't remember what his relation was, but the guy who brought her one sister down to like that creek or whatever and like shot her and killed her, when they were like in the courtroom scene, they're like, you went back to that creek, didn't you? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, what did you do down there? And I like totally thought it was going to go a really creepy, different direction, that like he did something to her dead body. But then he's just like, I threw parties. I was like, oh my, I thought that was going somewhere way different when they're like, what did you do down there when you went back?
I actually remember what you mean now. And I think I thought the same thing. I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah. I was like, what the hell did he do? And then he's just like, I threw parties on there. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I actually remember exactly what you mean.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I think it was like, a masterpiece in terms of like the filmmaking, just in terms of like overall like enjoyment, like and like Scorsese would be the first to tell you this isn't really a film he made with the intent to like entertain people. It's an educational film, which I think was very like I was happy for it because like we already mentioned, like with this stuff we had never heard about, and it's awesome when you can kind of use film as a vessel to tell people about like atrocious things that have happened that no one's really just everyone's kind of sweeping under the rug. But yeah, any other thoughts from you on Killers of the Flower Moon?
No, I kind of said everything I wanted to say. Like I said, it's my number one of the year. I think it's one of Scorsese's best. So right now it sits just above Raging Bull and just below Taxi Driver. That's kind of how highly I think of it as a film.